Recording in progress.
Logistics and transportation industry has been directly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. As a major part of value chain, both within and across international borders. Supply chain disruption to the sectors caused by the pandemic, therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. I would like to invite all of you to join the second KUSRC International Conference, online conference with certificate. Under the theme of Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Date and time of conference on 27th of July 2022 from 9 to 12 o'clock Bangkok time. Live on Zoom, YouTube KUSRC, Facebook KU Sriracha. So don't forget to follow and subscribe our channel. All skillful speakers will reflect their experiences to develop and motivate an action plan for sustainability and overcome the global crisis. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Burrow, Area Managing Director for Merck, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar and Laos. He will talk about competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. Next, speaker is Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibility, Helsinki, Finland, and Bo Luang Asian Chair Professor, Kasetsart University. Sustainability Specialist, he will talk about supply chain management and social responsibility. The next keynote speaker is Mr. Borawut Mala, Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor Officer. He will talk about EEC policy on sustainability management of logistopolis. Logistics and transportation industry has been directly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. As a major part of value chain, both within and across international borders. Supply chain disruption to the sectors caused by the pandemic, therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. I would like to invite all of you to join the second KUSRC International Conference, online conference with certificate. Under the theme of Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Date and time of conference on 27 of July 2022 from 9 to 12 o'clock Bangkok time. Live on Zoom, YouTube KUSRC, Facebook KUC Russia. So don't forget to follow and subscribe our channel. All skillful speakers will reflect their experiences to develop and motivate an action plan for sustainability and overcome the global crisis. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Burrow, Area Managing Director for Merck, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. He will talk about competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. Next, speaker is Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibilities, Helsinki, Finland, and Bo Luang Asian Chair Professor Kasetsart University. Sustainability Specialist, he will talk about supply chain management and social responsibilities. The next keynote speaker is Mr. Borawut Mala, Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor Officer. He will talk about EEC policy on sustainability management of Logistopolis. Logistics and transportation industry has been directly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. As a major part of value chain, both within and across international borders. Supply chain disruption to the sectors caused by the pandemic, therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. I would like to invite all of you to join the second KUSRC International Conference, online conference with certificate. Under the theme of Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Date and time of conference on 27 of July 2022 from 9 to 12 o'clock Bangkok time. Live on Zoom, YouTube KUSRC, Facebook KUC Russia. So don't forget to follow and subscribe our channel. All skillful speakers will reflect their experiences to develop and motivate an action plan for sustainability and overcome the global crisis. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Burrell, Area Managing Director for Merck, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. He will talk about competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. Next, speaker is Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibilities, Helsinki, Finland, and Bo Luang Asian Chair Professor Kasetsart University. Sustainability Specialist, he will talk about supply chain management and social responsibilities. The next keynote speaker is Mr. Borawut Mala, Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor Officer. He will talk about EEC policy on sustainability management of Logistopolis. Logistics and transportation industry has been directly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a major part of value chain, both within and across international borders. Supply chain disruption to the sectors caused by the pandemic, therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. I would like to invite all of you to join the second KUSRC International Conference, online conference with certificate. Under the theme of Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Date and time of conference on 27 of July 2022 from 9 to 12 o'clock Bangkok time. Live on Zoom, YouTube KUSRC, Facebook KU Sriracha. So don't forget to follow and subscribe our channel. All skillful speakers will reflect their experiences to develop and motivate an action plan for sustainability and overcome the global crisis. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Burrow, Area Managing Director for Merck, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. He will talk about competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. Next, speaker is Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibilities, Helsinki, Finland, and Bo Luang Asian Chair Professor Kasetsart University. Sustainability Specialist, he will talk about supply chain management and social responsibilities. The next keynote speaker is Mr. Borawut Mala, Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor Officer. He will talk about EEC policy on sustainability management of Logistopolis. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to welcome all of you to International Conference of Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus 2022, live on Zoom, YouTube Live KUSRC, and Facebook Live KU Sriracha. The conference brings us together the academics, researchers, business, and participants who are interested in logistics.
Right. And the theme for this conference is Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis.
Yes.
And this conference is also organized by us again, Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus. But we have the partner as well for this time with Maersk, Hanken, and also Eastern Economic Corridor or EEC. And my name is Dr. Chayapot Lianan.
My name is Dr. Pornpom Rungrung. As a moderator of the conference,
Right. So before we start the conference, I would like to inform you briefly about the rules and regulations. Please, everyone, turn off your microphone during the conference, and also kindly use the virtual background that we have sent to you all via email address.
all right. And how about the camera?
Also, the camera need to be turned on all the time as well during the conference.
All right. And because everyone joining us today, and we're gonna keep like a memorable moment. So everyone, could you please turn on your camera and we can take a pictures together?
Right. Please turn on your camera, please, so that we can have the photo session together.
All right. So if you don't mind and you available, so please turn on your camera. All right, so we take a little time for today for taking a picture. So, okay, so please turn on your camera.
So I hope everyone have a good morning today.
All right, so
So I haven't seen anyone yet, right? So maybe some of you have turned on already. Good morning, everyone. So I hope you're doing great.
yes,
Right. So we are so ready for today's conference.
yes. So like we have a cooperation with like many organizations for today. All right, please turn on your cameras.
Hello. Also, don't forget to turn off your microphone.
All right. And noted that for today, we have a certificate for everyone who attend the conference.
Right. So don't forget to do the assessment at the end, which we will gonna inform you about information later on.
Yes. So it's like an automatic system. So for everyone who do the assessment after we have done everything, and they will send it automatically to you.
Right. I'm so excited because this is our second time of international conference. The first time was very successful. It was about tourism management.
All right. And how about the next time? I can't wait.
Right. I still don't know the theme yet, but I have heard that it will be quite very interesting as well, the same as this week.
All right. So I think everyone please like follow and subscribe our channel for more information about the next conference.
Right. We do have the Facebook page as well.
Yes.
So don't forget to subscribe and follow. The Facebook page is Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus.
And also we have like Facebook and YouTube
and we
channel.
do have YouTube channel as well.
Yes, it's like KUSRC. So you go to click like and follow our YouTube channel.
Right. All right. So I think we might need a little time to prepare everyone for the photo session.
All right. So we move on to the next part. So just want you to let you know that questions are also the important part. So if you have any question, you can type in the question in the chat box. Don't worry, we will be addressing them at the end of each topic. Importantly, before you leave the conference, just to remind you again that it would be nice if you can do the conference assessment for us. It won't take a long time to go through all process, so please do not hesitate about it.
All right. So do not forget to do All right, and that were all our rules and regulations actually.
Yes.
อาจารย์ติ้งครับ actually this is our second international conference hosted by Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus.
Yes.
And actually we do have a teaser as well.
Right.
Right. So for not wasting more time, I think we should send everyone to see how the teaser is like. All right.
Yes. Oh my God, can't wait.
Right.
All right, so let's see. Supply chain disruption to the sectors caused by the pandemics, therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. I would like to invite all of you to join the second KUSRC International Conference, online conference with certificate. Under the theme of Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Date and time of conference on 27th of July 2022 from 9 to 12 o'clock Bangkok time. Live on Zoom, YouTube KUSRC, Facebook KUC Russia. So don't forget to follow and subscribe our channel. All skillful speakers will reflect their experiences to develop and motivate an action plan for sustainability and overcome the global crisis. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Burrow, Area Managing Director for Merck, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. He will talk about competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. Next, speaker is Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibilities, Helsinki, Finland, and Bo Luang Asian Chair Professor Kasetsart University. Sustainability Specialist, he will talk about supply chain management and social responsibilities. The next keynote speaker is Mr. Borawut Mala, Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor Officer. He will talk about EEC policy on sustainability management of Logistopolis. Alright, so welcome back. Ajahn Alek, it's going to be a great day today.
It is,
yes,
of course.
but before we get started with the first speaker, I would like to introduce everyone about our lovely Unique.
Right.
By the way, I have a video clip about Unique introduction. Ajahn Alek, how would you like to see it?
Of course, I can't wait for that.
Alright, so let's see. All right. All right, welcome back once again.
Right.
To kick off this morning program, we're pleased to have with us our Vice President of Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus, Assistant Professor Dr. Seri Kunjana, to deliver the opening remarks of the second KUSRC International Conference 2022.
Myanmar and Laos. Professor David B. Grants, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibility, Hankin School of Economics, Helsinki, Finland. Special Advisor, Eastern Economic Corridor, EEC Office. President of Kasetsart University. Executive, honorable guests and participants. On behalf of Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus, which is hosting the KUSRC International Conference, I welcome you all to the online conference, which is being broadcast on Zoom meeting, YouTube, Facebook Live. Today's topic is Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis. Thank you for participating. The goal of this event are to help policymakers and the planners in governmental agencies, private industry, academic institutions, as well as students and the general public to consider and gain understanding of the issue affecting logistics and related transportation industry caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. The key objectives are to encourage them to plan and implement policies and programs that will best address this global crisis. The conference has been organized to provide a forum for us to share our ideas and to work together. We need to generate community, governmental, and industry-related support for long-term, safe, sustainable, efficient, social responsible supply chain. There are many facets involved, including the role of academic institutions that train and educate the students who wish to attain meaningful career in supply chain related industry. Of course, we are concerned about the disruption in the global supply chain and the impact on marketplace competitiveness, economic growth, and the creation of career in logistics, which affect both small and large enterprises. Today's issue focus on understanding competitive strategy and best practice in supply chain management, including the governmental policies that are intended to overcome the economic crisis, especially here in the eastern region of Thailand. Our hope is the logistics and transportation system within Thailand will soon flourish during this era of global crisis and also far into the future. The goal is with safe, clean, sustainable growth that is socially responsible. I thank all the keynote speakers, the administrator who helped to arrange the conference, and all of you who are listening to the second Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus International Conference. Thank you for participating online. We hope that sometime soon we will meet you in person on our beautiful campus. Thank you very much. Let's proceed with the conference.
All right, ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you very much indeed to Assistant Professor Dr. Seri Kunjana, our Vice President of Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus for very energetic opening message.
All right, so we come to the next stage. We are very pleased actually to have the President of Kasetsart University, Dr. Jongrak Wacharindat. He'll be here with us today, and he will give an opening address on the sustainable supply chain management to overcome the global crisis. So please welcome the President.
Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. Professor David B. Kant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibility, Hankin School of Economics, Helsinki, Finland. special advisors, Eastern Economics Corridor EEC Office, executives, honorable guests, and participants. I'm honored to share of the opening of the second Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus International Conference. Thank you inviting me to provide an open address. We all are aware of the pandemic caused the coronavirus and its unfortunate impact on a large number of people worldwide. It has had an enormous impact on the health of humankind throughout the world, on healthcare industries, and on economic growth. All are a global concern. Here in Thailand, the crisis continues to have an impact on our nation logistics and transportation industry. Disruption within these sectors have undermined competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation in all sections of our society. The primary focus of this conference is to consider appropriate policies and plans and to stimulate action after and during the coronavirus pandemic that will strengthen supply chain management, policies and plans that will promote sustainable supply chain management and to overcome the global crisis. It is important to develop creative strategies and to implement sustainable solutions that benefit domestic and foreign entrepreneurs, academic institutions, including Kasetsart University, and keenly interest in this goal. This is a reason that we need to educate and prepare the workforce, particularly those who will soon enter the labor market, so they can effectively provide leadership and participate in ways that resolve those continuous challenges. Our ultimate goal is to stimulate the economics and to provide integrated solutions to ensure sustainable chains of supply. We must accomplish these goals in the way that we safe, efficient, sustainable, and socially responsible. Finding sustainable development solution is not only the long-term goal, it is an immediate need that must be accomplished now. It is appropriate that the second KUSRC Sriracha International Conference 2022 address this important topic, sustainable supply chain management to overcome the global crisis. It is particularly appropriate for Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus, which is located within our nation's Eastern Economic Corridor, because of the expertise that campus has in logistics and supply chain development, marine industries, and technological innovation. I am confident that all who attend this conference will benefit from the expertise and comment provided by the keynote speakers. They are representing important governmental agencies, business, and entities associated with these issues. We believe that the conversation will be useful to the relevant sectors of the logistics and transportation industries, especially those in the eastern part of Thailand. I'm honored to declare the Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus International Conference under the topic Sustainable Supply Chain Management to Overcome the Global Crisis officially open. I wish each of you good health and a rewarding conference. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
All right. So thank you very much for such a remarkable speech given by our president, Dr. Chongrak Wacharinrat, the president of Kasetsart University. All right. So we are come to the crucial part of the conference already.
Yeah.
Right. And now, if you have any question during the conference, please do not hesitate to leave the message at the chat box so that we
Right.
can address all the message, and then we're gonna ask on the live session together.
Yes.
All right.
That's right.
So I think the first speaker is ready now.
Yes, sure.
Right. So the first speaker is Mr. Kevin Burrow. He is the area managing director for Merck's Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos. And today he will give the topic of competitive strategies to overcome the crisis. So
Okay,
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
right, can you hear us?
super. Yeah, we can hear you fine. Just the sound check is always the start of the presentation, right? Are you uploading my presentation?
Okay, all right. So we got your text already. So whenever you're ready, you can start whenever you're ready. Thank you very much.
Super. Then why don't you raise up the presentation and I'll start to take people through it.
Right. Can you see the slide, Mr. Kevin?
Can.
Right,
Obviously, you'll need
perfect.
to move the slides forward. Okay, so firstly, just to everybody, it's an absolute pleasure to spend the time with you here today. Hello, can you hear me still?
All right, we can hear you now.
Okay, super. All right. I just heard a bit of background noise. That's also a little bit of a challenge to go through. So firstly, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to be able to share to you as a group a little bit about supply chain disruption, about some of the issues that were happening clearly in the recent time. What I'd like to do, I guess you'll control the slides for me. So if you can sort of move me to the first slide so I can start presenting. Thanks, that's great. So, I keep getting an echo, huh? All right. Okay, so I'll continue. So inevitably, when the pandemic happened, really dependent on where companies sat within their supply chains, we saw clear impacts on certain companies, and actually probably only about 11% of the total company base had a positive effect from the pandemic. And I will say, if you start to look at it and you look at this survey here stated, you'll see that the pandemic obviously had significant impact on some companies, almost 17%, but mostly had a negative effect. You know, it was at least 80% of the total, 80 to 89% had a significant impact on their business. And primarily, you know, COVID-19 had an impact with global distribution, global trade, obviously health, education systems, business and societies had major impacts. It's look, I worked and lived in Thailand for a number of years. I now sit in Vietnam, but you know, automotive industry being one of the basis of the large economic factor for the Thailand country. It obviously had massive impacts on the automotive supply chain. Obviously, parts coming in from across the world, negatively impacted supply chains, the ability to get those parts, to be able to produce those, use those components for the purposes of production. Clearly, it was a massive impact to the overall business. So as we start to think about what that meant to companies, if we can move to the next slide, please. Could you move to the next slide, please? Okay, that's great. So when we start to think about what companies have been doing to try and overcome some of the situations for the global pandemic, I guess we hear openly in the market about China Plus One strategy. Many companies, and Maersk customers included, have become significantly reliant on China as an origin market for a number of the components across the world. Obviously, China as a business, China as a country rather, has prided itself on its ability to manufacture low-cost parts, low-cost materials, and effectively has become the factory for the world. Now what we're seeing is we start to hear from companies about their diversification strategy. I talk to many customers these days, and you start to hear China Plus One, even China Plus Two and China Plus Three strategies, whereby companies have made a decision that what they will do is they will source a second manufacturing base for the world. Thailand and Vietnam are common locations where companies are actually trying to set up the China Plus One strategy. And we also start to even see Indonesia, although not stated on this slide, where companies are starting to diversify their primary production centers. Equally, as we go down and we start to think about some of the major brands across the world, you'll see major brands made massive changes to the way they operated in that particular time. For example, Samsung invested in nine mid-sized companies in developing a network of chip production activities outside South Korea in that time, inevitably because the ability and the resilience of the supply chain around certain key suppliers gave them incredible concerns in their ability to be able to build their production base. Even when you think about companies like Tesla, the large automotive company based out of the US, they actually overcame their problems by rewriting vehicle software to enable them to actually continue to develop their cars, simply because there was no chips available for them to be able to manufacture some of their materials. If you can move forward to the next slide, please. So when we start to talk about a shipping company like Maersk, so Maersk, many of you will know, is the largest shipping company in the world. And during this very challenging time of the pandemic, what we saw is, with these global supply chains being significantly impacted, also shipping was massively impacted. The main issues around the shipping industry was historically where vessels used to leave Asia to move across the world, suddenly the amount of COVID controls being placed within the supply chain disrupted considerably the operations of a large shipping company like Maersk. Traditionally, where vessels would take 20 or 30 days to travel across the world, we're now taking 60 days because of the controls and processes put in place by all of the ports and the congestion coming through the ports. So actually there was an amplification issue at this particular time, and that amplification issue was not only global shipping was impacted, but also the supply chains behind global shipping were also disrupted. So as you can imagine, the ability to source the parts to produce anything that you need to produce in the world was a challenge. Then extending those supply chain lead times by further doubling of his existing lead time basically put companies into panic. Further to that, the impacts in the local markets in production bases, where suddenly we had manufacturing companies with half the workforces, with transportation companies with half the workforces. It further amplified the issues. We all heard about the West Coast port congestion challenges because of some of the trading teams in that particular area. It had massive implications on the overall supply chains. So it was at that time that companies like Maersk and many companies across the world needed to adjust their ways of working. And in adjusting their ways of working, a company like Maersk, I'm sorry, could you move back to the previous slide? Thank you. They needed to start supporting companies in overcoming these significant challenges. And these types of companies, inevitably, because they need to move urgent parts across the world, no longer could they get ocean freight reliability, transportation modes, and adapting to ways of working to enable these companies to receive their products was really, really important. So at that time, Maersk moved into operating air freight charters, intercontinental rail instead of ocean. Equally, companies realized that stockpiling inventory and controlling inventory and managing that for reliance, they started to increase the amount of storage they had across the world, also looking at bonded warehousing as well. But finally, a lot of the companies that had previously designed their supply chains around efficiency, cost, they suddenly realized that they were really, really exposed. And because they were really, really exposed, they didn't have the visibility of the inbound supply chains that they expected, which also made them extremely reactive. So actually visibility and building visibility platforms for companies became a really, really important part. Now, if you can move forward to the next slide, please. So Maersk, in the last 4 years, had already decided to adjust its strategy. Maersk as a company, as we know, is a very, very large shipping line. It moves containers all around the world, but it already become into a decision that what it wanted to do was change its strategy to become a global integrated logistics company. But the COVID situation even amplified the view that it should become an outcome-based logistics company. If we think about companies like Nike, Nike has an ambition to be able to distribute its products throughout the world. Its supply chain is hugely complex. And within that supply chain, there are many, many trading partners who, through the disruption processes of the COVID situation, inevitably broke down. Many, many companies were struggling. And in this stage, you can imagine that the primary function of a company was impacted by its supply chain. Its abilities to create revenue were impacted. And if you were inside the Nike business, you saw your revenues and profits tumble because of this situation. So I talked a little bit about Maersk and its shipping line and moving from an integrated traditional shipping business into a logistics company. The vision of our company, which has been changed through the pandemic, is that as an organization, it's our responsibility to deliver the outcomes for our customers. What that means, if I give as a prime example that you would, as a consumer of products, typically use the UPSs, the DHLs, the FedExes to be able to deliver your parcel from Thailand to San Francisco, as an example, you have no knowledge as a consumer on how that's actually being routed, the logistics flow, the speed of which it's going to become. So in this particular case, Maersk's strategy is that we will go to the global companies and offer them outcome-based logistics, which means for Nike will turn to us and say they want to sell X million dollars worth of product in a specific market. And the company like us will be compensated. It will design the supply chain to be able to do that. And taking resilience in mind, taking the concerns of the global supply chain in mind, it will deliver the outcome to the customer. It won't deliver a plane, it won't deliver a boat, it won't deliver a truck. It will deliver the outcome, which is a certain specific sales for our customers across the world. In other words, whilst the shipping company of old would ship the product around the world and ensure the supply chains were delivered through a product, the future is we will ensure that the shirt is delivered to the individual in the market in the future, not just the container. So it means that we will deliver the outcome on behalf of our customers, and our entire strategy has been revamped because of the pandemic, because we will take the responsibility as a company to deliver the outcome to the customers that we operate with. You can move forward to the next slide, please. The reason why we do this, there's one thing that is certain. Change is absolutely inevitable. How we sit here today and how things will be in the next year, for absolute certainty, we will see impacted supply chains. If you look today, only a few months ago, we were coming out of the pandemic, and then the situation in Russia and Ukraine happened, which created massive instability. The continuing trading challenges between China and the United States provides further concerns around global supply chains. And if you take a look at all of the different aspects in this slide, there are many inflationary factors, there are labor shortages, there are rising interest rates, there are many factors across the world that will impact global supply chains. And therefore, a company like Maersk, who realizes that these geopolitical impacts will constantly be happening, can then redefine the way it operates. It can redefine its value to customers, because becoming an outcome-based logistics company, we can ensure that our customers receive the services, and more importantly, the outcomes that they need. For sure, change is inevitable, but without understanding the geopolitical impacts, the fact that there will be disruption and continue to be disruption in the coming years, companies will not survive or grow unless they make themselves resilient to these types of changes. Could you move forward to the next slide, please? So it's interesting, because if I had shown this slide historically, this slide would have said, this is what our customers think. We've recently surveyed our customers. In the days gone by, it would be about cost. It would be about getting things there on time, but the primary activity was around cost. If we look today at what customers are now thinking, customers have been massively impacted through the global supply chains. And because of that, you start to see companies massively think about the way they set themselves up for the future. So if I go through this wheel that you see here, inevitably service reliability is one of the largest impacts or largest concerns of a company today. Without receiving our products on time, the entire supply chains are impacted. Speed to market is also a massive concern of companies today. With longer lead times, with less ability to be able to adjust those lead times, the ability to build into the supply chain itself a speed to market capability is a very, very important part. Further to that, supply chain resilience. I talked before that the supply chains of old were based around companies principally looking at cost. Now it's about ensuring that there is a redundancy to the way the supply chain has been set up. I talked before about companies doing China plus one strategies. Now, when I talk to customers around the world, we see companies de-risking China considerably. And when they talk about de-risking China, you would think if a company like Nike that produces its shirts, what they're now doing is understanding not only the shirt, but the buttons and the zips and all elements and componentry and the products they have. And they're now moving down into the second tier and de-risking China as a market. And what they're doing is starting to look at ways to find multiple sourcing methods. So supply chains and supply chain resilience, of course, needs to be cost optimized. Cost will always be a factor. But what optimization means, it means it's not the lowest possible cost anymore. What it means is they need to optimize it against the risk that they have to ensure that their supply chain operate. Real-time visibility at the top of this slide. Many companies during the pandemic phases had massive issues in understanding the material flows coming into their production facilities. Equally, they had massive concerns in their ability of understanding across their downstream supply chain, where their product was, how they could respond to their services for their customers. When they were trying to deliver the goods to their customers across the world, they simply didn't know whether it was going to be on time or not. So real-time visibility is an area where almost all of the customers now that I speak to are focused, but not only on the primary visibility. What that means is they're not only interested in the primary product flow, they're now starting to get much more focused on the second tier and third tier production base as well, so they can understand the reliability of their raw material flows into their primary production operations. Because those raw material flows, they've realized that it's not the first tier manufacturing cycle that is the problem. It's the second tier and third tier that is driving that form of resilience into the supply chain. Then we talk about the final point, and obviously after COP26 and looking forwards into our global situation today, there is no company that I talk to that isn't developing a strategy around sustainability. Now, many of those companies, Maersk included, by the way, isn't 100% sure on how they're going to deliver their sustainability promise. But in this particular case, if we look at a company like Maersk, we may not know how we're going to deliver it, but we persist on it. We make a change on it. I give an example of it. When we made our sustainability promise to the world, we said we're going to go carbon neutral in 2050. Within 3 weeks, our company owner changed his mind and said, we're going to do it by 2040. And then he said, and by 2030, what we're going to do is we're going to ensure all the physical land-based infrastructure is carbon neutral. The next step he took is we understood that every single one of our new vessels that we will buy will be carbon neutral. So we have 735 ships operating on the world right now. We carry 25% of global trade. And our bold visionary leaders of our organization have made decisions to organize in a sustainable manner and will not buy another vessel between now and 2030 that is not carbon neutral. And all of our vessels by 2040 will be carbon neutral. So it's companies like ours that around the world who have really started to realize it's not a country responsibility. Of course, the nations around the world are trying to change the vision towards sustainability, and we see bold countries making bold statements around what they're going to do. But it can only be possible if the companies like us, if the possible like supply chain companies like us, who move the vast majority of product around the world, take those bold steps before. So if I can move forward to the next slide, please. So I want to conclude my presentation. I will conclude it by sort of sharing with you a summary of some of the key messages or the key points that you should take away from here. COVID-19 was a massive impact around the world. It created massive global disruption in the supply chain, but also a cost, of course, to the living and the standards of living that many people had. And there were very few sectors that actually were positively affected. And it's very obvious to understand those positively affected companies, people that make vaccines, healthcare card companies. But the bulk of the main trading operation around the world was affected in some way. And those main companies were affected, were then forced to start thinking differently, starting to adapt and build their supply chains into resilient supply chains that were able to cope with disruption, supply chains that had alternative sourcing arrangements, and where historically the supply chains were squeezed to a point that cost was the most important aspect of them. Resilience has become the most important aspect of the supply chains today. Our company, and I sort of took you through the journey that we've had, has changed its entire strategy on the back of the pandemic. And it's changed it for the purposes of understanding that these global companies who are changing the way they source, changing the way they operate for resilience, that a company like us, who understands that the most important aspect of their customers is their outcomes, is their sustainability on the world, and more importantly, on their ability to operate through all of these disruptive issues. And that's why a company like us is changing its strategy to be able to cope. Because we know in the coming years, change will happen constantly. And whilst we have one pandemic, which changed the world forever, there will constantly be issues in the coming years. And we don't know what those issues will be. But what we know as a company is that we need to prepare for them. And we need to prepare our customers for those issues. And for us as a company to migrate into an outcome-based supply chain company, from being the largest shipping company, we will ensure that our customers have success on a global platform. But I guess the most important aspect is, if you sit in the room and if you're a company that is refusing to change and is refusing to listen to the changing aspects of the supply chain, we've heard of stories of companies like Kodak and Nokia that suppressed some of those major innovative changes to be able to, as a company, sustain their business. If we look at the companies today and those that will do really well in the future, it's those that listen. It's those that listen to their customers and adapt and change to the future that is coming. And those companies that have the ability to adapt and change will prosper. Those that don't adapt and change will die. And there are many companies in this world right now that are trying to change their entire way of working to ensure that they survive and grow. I think that's my last slide. If you can just move forward. So I guess from me, I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak. I hope that some of the things that I shared were insightful in some way, and more importantly, from our organization and what we are doing and how we have changed because of pandemic, you will see some others who will change because of pandemic. So thanks for the opportunity to speak.
All right, thank you very much, ขอบคุณค่ะ Mr. Kevin, for your cooperation. So I think it's very useful and informative, right?
It is.
All right, so now we move on to the part of Q&A sessions. All right, so now we have like attendees who have a questions. So now we have คุณวราพร could you please invite คุณวราพร to the panel,
Yes,
please?
yes. Can you hear me? Sorry,
All right, we can hear you
me?
clearly. All right, so now
Okay.
you can ask the question real time with Mr. Kevin.
Yes, I have one question. For outcome-based logistics, Mr. Kevin, can you tell me, how do supply chain partners need to be prepared for recover or after post-COVID-19 for supply chain partners?
So if you think about supply chain partners, or you think about the traditional 3PL space where logistics companies operate, traditional logistics companies operate in a position of delivering a specific service. So if you look at a principal company, let's take an example of Procter & Gamble. It's got a large manufacturing base in Thailand. Historically, they would sit in a position of making the decisions as a company of how they would distribute their product, how they would manufacture their product. And they would take every single complexity of that supply chain upon themselves. And because as a company, they are not having logistics or supply chain as a core fundamental in the way they operate, the challenges are that they cannot respond to the knowledge of what is going on in the marketplace from a logistics and supply chain point of view. So a company that is moving into outcome-based logistics solutions, where P&G had before asked a company operating in Thailand to provide a transportation service from A to B, outcome-based logistics or supply chain solutions is basically saying, in Thailand, I want to be able to sell $100 million worth of product. So $100 million worth of product I want to sell, and this is the type of products I want to sell. And then an outcome-based supply chain company will turn to them and say, okay, well, let me try and tell you how to do that. We'll do it. We will set up a distribution center. We'll set up a transportation mode. And then we'll build the resilience into the transportation operations and supply chain operations that if something fails, we have the way to overcome that and still deliver the $100 million worth of sales that a company like P&G needs in those markets. So there's no company that's ever done this before. There's no company that's actually said, I guarantee you the $100 million worth of sales. And by the way, I'll take on board the challenges of the supply chain, and I will ensure that you will have $100 million of sale because I will ensure that the product is available to sell to all of your customers. So what it means is that the typical third-party logistics industry, which is primarily based on muscle-related warehousing and trucking, and it means that we need to have much greater understanding of the overall supply chain, also greater understanding of the challenges in the supply chain, and more importantly, the way to remedy it. So inevitably, you start to think in the integrator mode. In fact, I was talking to a company yesterday who today has challenges in moving their ocean freight from this country to Barcelona. And the conversation we were having them was, okay, well, can you give me greater number of containers? Our forecast has increased. Well, the inevitable conversation is, well, we need to think of all the different outcomes that you're looking for. You're looking for this material to be there on the shelf for your customers. Well, then we need to think about not just traditional ocean freight. We need to think about road freight. We need to think about sea air freight. We need to think about air freight. And in an outcome-based solution, it would be our requirement to ensure that that product is based there in whichever mode and whichever fashion that supply chain is designed. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. It's very challenging. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for Q&A session. So I think everyone gets like a more informative and useful knowledge from now.
Right. So basically, Mr. Kevin has talked about, the solution, how to deal with the COVID-19.
Right.
And also he has talked about the China Plus One, which is very interesting term actually.
Yes, that's
and we have heard about geopolitical conflicts, right?
Right.
That the political can, create big challenges to the transportation, logistic that each company need to handle with them carefully.
Right.
And I am very, personally favor about not also adapt and change, but listen, right?
Yes.
Because listen is the only thing, right? To hear and then to change, to adapt your own strategies to be a better one. All right. So it is about customer centric actually. Right. And that's all the summarization from Mr. Burrell. Thank you very much for your time and hope to see you again next time if there's any chance. All right.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
All right. So next, it's my pleasure to introduce Professor David B. Grant, Professor of Supply Chain Management and Social Responsibility, Helsinki, Finland, and also Bualong Asian Chair, Professor Kasetsart University, Bangkok, Thailand, with the topic of supply chain management and social responsibilities. So please welcome Professor David B. Grant. All right.
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ Hello.
Sriracha, good morning. Can you hear me
Good
okay?
morning.
All right.
Right, I can hear you well.
Excellent.
All
Good.
right.
Okay. It
All right,
sounds
so-
very low on my speakers, but that's fine.
Right.
I will upload my presentation now to begin.
All right. So,
All right.
yes. Now we can see your slides. Okay.
Well, you can see the slide, but you can't see I have to put it into presentation mode.
Yes. So now we can see your slide.
Okay.
All right.
Can you see that now?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, we can see it. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
We can begin.
All right. All right. So now we
All
give
right.
you a floor.
Okay. I want to begin by saying, firstly, thank you to Kasetsart for allowing me to make a presentation this morning. And you gave me quite a challenge to talk about sustainability and societal impact, particularly transportation and storage or warehousing, which was my brief. But I have to say it's much too broad a topic for half an hour. I also, as Kevin was suggesting in his speech, believe they need to be considered holistically, sort of as a complex ecosystem. So basically, I want to go through in the next 30 minutes what I think are the important issues in this sector. And a lot
Excuse
of
me,
them are
Professor
discussed.
Grant.
Yes.
Excuse me, Professor Grant. Can you please present the slides because now it's like overall one. So
Okay.
could you please click present it?
Okay.
Could you please
just put them
share
into the
it in
chat.
full screen? Yeah.
All right.
So you have the icon downside.
Yeah.
Now it's the overview one. So no. Is could you please click the slideshow on the top? Yes. And from the beginning one, that's right.
I had done that. Does that work?
Can you please double click on the first slide because now it's like the overview one.
Is that working?
Okay, so we try the other way. Okay, so from the downside of your PowerPoint, it have like a symbol nearly zoom in and zoom out. Is the pictures of the slide presentation near the zoom in and zoom out downside.
Okay, just let me try something else here.
Okay.
I'm going to put the presentation into the chat.
Could you please like
and that way you folks can take control and run them from there.
Maybe you can send the slides and we can share the slides from you.
Yes, I've just done that in a chat to Natia.
All right, so I will check with the staff. Okay, the staff will show the slide for you. So just please wait a moment. Okay, so from now the slide is already presenting.
Okay, excellent. All right, we start again. If you can go to the next slide, please. So as I was saying, the issue is this is a much broad topic that's too much for half an hour. So what I want to do is focus on a few things that we have chatted about in our book, which is now into the third edition. And in fact, we have just received information this week that it'll be published in November, and some details of the slides are available there. And I have sent a PDF copy of these slides to Natia to send to all of the conference participants. So what I want to do is focus on two things, and freight transport emissions and sort of potential solutions. And I'm going to focus on road freight. I've left sort of the international shipping and what have you to Mr. Burrell from Maersk. And I'm going to focus primarily what happens on land, because as he noted in his speech, getting goods from point of origin to point of consumption, which is going to be on retail shelves and on land, is an important feature. And coupled with that, I want to talk a little bit about distribution design for storage and warehousing, which includes reducing storage emissions. Now, a lot of work has been done on this in the past. I have two former PhD students, one of whom in UK, Sarah Shaw, and one of whom is actually on staff at Kasetsart, Sriracha Campus, who looked at performance measures and issues regarding how you look at what factors to consider, how you take them into account, and which ones are important to everybody. So this is kind of a highlight of a lot of that sort of work and some other things that I have looked at. Next slide, please. If we look at sort of the average greenhouse gas emissions in the UK by industrial sector, back one, we see that transportation on land is going to essentially be about 27% of all emissions. So a lot of emissions are generated by business activities, energy supplies, residents, and so on and so forth. And that's an important thing, because a lot of times transportation and logistics activities, I think, are unfairly criticized for the emissions that they produce. Now, I don't want to be an apologist for the logistics sector and saying, well, it's not us, but all of these things need to be taken into context. Next slide, please. And if we look at the average emissions of CO2 per ton kilometer by freight transport mode, we can see that air is the worst. So you would say, well, we don't want to be doing air cargo. But then next in line are vans, small delivery vans that you would get your Amazon parcels from, and heavy goods vehicles or trucks or lorries or however you want to call it. When we look at rail and we look at shipping by sea, very, very small. And so this has led a lot of people to focus on some of these other activities at the left-hand side. Next slide, please. And if we look at the average emissions, again, in UK as a sample by transport mode, we see that 38% of the emissions by transport mode come from vans and trucks. 68% come from people driving their cars or taxis. And if we look at sort of the shipping emissions and others at the other end, including international aviation, they're kind of less. And I'm not going to talk about aviation at all here on some of these issues, but again, this just gives evidence that from a transport perspective, we really can't just focus solely on trucks and vans as the worst source. There are other issues at play, and this is part of this complex ecosystem. People need to be driving less or maybe taking public transport or something of that nature. So again, as people working in the sector or going out to work in the sector, if you're a student at Kasetsart, these are things you need to think about going forward. Next slide, please. Road freight, obviously, when we look at the actual emissions that come out in megatons of CO2 per year, is the worst at over 1,500 megatons. And building's actually quite small, but again, because I was asked to have a look at that, and they are part of that logistical chain on land, we'll consider those as well. But they are certainly less than 500 megatons per year. What's really interesting is if we look at air freight, the actual amount that comes out each year is quite small. And what that means is there are less items of air freight being shipped around the world. Now that may have increased since this book was written, but in any event, it reflects the price and density relationship that air cargo has. You don't ship coal by an airplane because it's just too expensive for what it is worth. You ship iPhones and things of that nature, which are low density but high value items. So again, we need to focus on sort of the road freight and trucks, which are at the left end. Next slide, please. People also talk about congestion, and just to sort of put that to rest, congestion from trucks on all roads is about 26%. 72% comes from cars and taxis. I didn't deliberately choose this photo on the left to show one truck and a whole bunch of cars and maybe one van, but it is reflective of what you might see on motorways. So again, these things need to be taken in context. Next slide, please. Something else that is often forgotten and has been taken into account by a former colleague of mine, Alan McKinnon, when we worked at Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, and one of our PhD students, Maya Pitchik, is the external costs of road freight. Now we know about congestion, and that's that yellow part of the graph on the right. And we know about emissions, which is the black part. But there are three other things that need to be taken into account, and that's accidents, noise, and infrastructure. And what we mean by infrastructure is, how do truck operators or trucks themselves, or for that matter, even people driving cars, contribute to maintaining infrastructure of highways, roads, bridges, and so on. And A lot of that is an issue currently in the United States, where a lot of the infrastructure on their motorways is very old, well over 50 years, and now it needs upgrading, and where is the money to do that? So a lot of the thinking is that, well, we need to pay taxes as road users to be able to offset these costs. We do that currently in the United Kingdom, which is where I have my primary residence. We pay road tax every year based on the emissions that come out of our vehicle. And what Alan and Maya were looking at here was the fact that maybe the taxes paid by truck operators and heavy goods vehicles only covered about 2/3 of those costs back in 2006. And this is part of a green logistics project that we had. In fact, we were getting very few contributions to that from foreign registered vehicles when Britain was in the EU, because they could just come across and use the roads essentially tax-free. That's not the case in all European countries. In Germany, for example, there is sort of a road pricing or taxing system that will make a charge to any vehicle that's on the road. But in fact, even fuel duties were avoided because drivers leaving Poland or Eastern Europe would fill up the tanks of their trucks with diesel, make their trip all the way there and all the way back home, and they wouldn't be buying any fuel in the UK, which meant there was no contribution from fuel duty either. And that has just gotten worse, I think, since Brexit. And in fact, it has added to some of the issues that we have in terms of passport control. I don't know if any of you have seen some of the chaos that was on the roads over the last weekend as British citizens going on holiday and truck drivers are all trying to feed into the port of Dover, but everything had to be checked, passports had to be stamped, and people and truck drivers were in their cars for hours, literally waiting to get into the port so that they could board a ferry to go across to Calais. Next slide, please. So what are some of the solutions that people have come up with over time? Firstly, aerodynamic design, which is the picture on the right-hand top. There is one company within the UK that is a conglomerate of retail stores, small convenience stores, who spent £250,000 on having a very aerodynamic trailer designed for them. And they used some of the Formula One people to help with the aerodynamic activities, certainly much more advanced than the photo here that Marks and Spencer have done by just putting sort of a bubble at the top. And they found that they increased their mileage from 4 miles to gallon for diesel to 8. And I asked them if they were going to carry that through for the entire operation, and they said no. The £250,000 per trailer for these advanced aerodynamic sort of race car type of trailers just wasn't worth it in terms of the money that they would receive for revenue for tripping. Another one is load optimization and utilization. And we did a study a few years ago on that. And we found that in vehicle loading, we were only covering about 53% of the floor space, and there was 19% of the weight that a vehicle could take that wasn't optimized. So that's a good idea. And there's very simple things such as improving your maintenance and maintaining tire pressure, which is not new. People have known this for decades, certainly for your own vehicles, cars and all the rest of that. But something else is driver training and behavior. And now with advanced telematics, where we can do better vehicle routing and scheduling and get vehicles around congestion zones or accidents, we can also monitor driver behavior to see if they're driving like a Formula One racer or if they are being much more efficient in how they operate their vehicles. Alternative fuels is another one, but it's also fraught with a bit of issues. Next slide, please. One of the things we have to think about is how do we decarbonize freight transport? And Alan has been working on this for a number of years and made a presentation at COP26 last year in Glasgow. But even he concludes it's very difficult to decarbonize. There is quite a dependence on fossil fuels, on diesel. which isn't going to go away anytime soon. And I know that Mr. Burrell is probably facing this as they try to go to low sulfur bunker crude for their ships. And this gets into some of the challenges that he outlined in getting carbon free by 2040 now instead of 2050. So the issue here is, what do we use for alternative fuels? And people talk about biofuels, but then the trade-off there relates to how much do we eat versus how much do we grow to turn into a fuel for a vehicle. And with some of the climate activities that have been happening, certainly in Europe over the last few weeks, crops being wiped out due to drought, high heat and temperature, lack of rain, then the actual source of product to make biofuels is decreasing. And how does that, of course, relate to what we're trying to do to eat? Next slide, please. One of the interesting things that have come out of the pandemic, of course, has been the growth in e-commerce. And it's becoming a norm for many people to have orders sent to their home, to other types of fulfillment activities. But one of the interesting things that I've studied over the last decade is nobody covers their costs by doing home delivery. We are seeing that slowly change. Amazon has just announced this week it is putting up the price of its Amazon Prime service from about £80 in Britain to £95. And that is to cover increased fuel costs and the other things that go with it. So if they're the best at fulfillment of packages and parcels to people, and they're not covering their costs, then who can? Next slide, please. The issues with e-commerce are manifest. And if we look at costs, which, as Mr. Burrell noted, has been an indicator for many years as opposed to sort of emission use and these kind of things. If we look at some of the interesting alternatives, such as drone delivery, it's very expensive, relatively speaking. Drones just don't fly by themselves. You need operators. And if you have really advanced drones, you might need more than one. And so at the end of the day, if you use a truck, it's still going to be your cheapest source of delivering products to people. But we're now in an era of 1 billion parcels. And we also have issues from a retail perspective of things like showrooming, where folks will go to stores, they will see products, then they will order them online that's cheaper. And that's not good from a retail perspective either, which is another one of my research interest areas. Next slide, please. So what are some of the potential solutions? We need clean freight, and maybe electricity is the way to go. But electricity has its own issues. Where do you get the electricity from? Is it from coal-fired power stations? We have an issue in Europe at the moment with the Russian-Ukraine conflict, whereby Russia is threatening to turn off the taps of natural gas. And Germany, which has been a leader in green energy for a number of years, it has shut down its coal plants, it has shut down its nuclear plants by popular choice and by voting of German citizens, are now going to reopen some of the coal-fired power stations so they can keep the lights on and keep the heating going this coming winter. So what is the best clean system? Other activities include hydrogen or battery-powered HGVs. A lot of those are in the startup stage and testing stage, but issues include, if we were looking at battery power, where do you charge the trucks up? How long does it take to charge up the batteries? How does that affect your operational efficiency? Same with hydrogen. Where do you get the fuel from? One interesting thing being developed by a Canadian colleague, and he's been doing this for many years, is using airships like Zeppelins for air cargo. You fill them with hydrogen and away they go. But again, that's in the trial stage and has not been very successful in operation. What about having more deliveries at night? where you can get operators to commit to quiet practices, because I'm sure most of us have been asleep in our homes and heard a truck backing up with its beeper and all the noise. But more importantly is the idea of distribution space that's needed in cities, especially in an online environment, so that we can get products to people. Next slide, please. There are some interesting solutions being done. On the upper left here, we have demountable boxes where products can come into the city. Van operators or people on bicycles can come and pick them up and take them for final delivery. Bottom left, GXO as it's known now, which is formerly XPO and formerly Norbert Destin Triangle, the logistics operator in third party in Europe, are moving containers on barges down the Seine in France to save lorries or trucks coming into the city center of Paris. Now that makes some sense, and you would have thought they would have done that years ago. Certainly the Rhine River in Germany is a major thoroughfare or motorway, if you will, for containers and all sorts of cargo, but it was never thought of until they said, let's do this to try this. Bottom right-hand side, we can take tram lines or existing public transport infrastructure and actually run cargo along them. The infrastructure is already built. You might have to put in a few sidings and offloading areas, but this would be an alternative way to do something that uses existing infrastructure. And lastly, this one is a bit of fun at the upper right. I was sitting outside a pub having a coffee one morning waiting for a museum to open in Amsterdam. And up came this truck, and this fellow pulled out this long hose like he was going to fill a fuel tank. And what he was doing was pumping beer into a big vat underneath the pub, a gassy Heineken lager. So again, we're not rolling out barrels of beer and hooking them up to taps. We have something that's a better operational activity. Next slide, please. Another one is urban consolidation centers, where we're going back to an old concept that I remember from my youth of sort of a wholesaler who's an aggregator to do things. And this is a bit of work that we looked at for a UCC that's managed by DHL in the Bristol Bath area of the United Kingdom. And again, another Thai colleague, Kanirat Nemtrokol, who's at Rajamandala University now in Thailand, was doing this as part of her PhD that was being supervised by Samuel Granville and myself. And what this drives is the idea of having collaborative relationships, which has been an issue in logistical and delivery activities for many years. We need more collaboration. A lot of researchers say that in the outcome of their research, but a lot of these activities aren't taking place. There's still too many barriers or should we say silos within individual companies that restrict them or make them nervous about sharing information, sharing costs, and these kinds of things. Next slide, please. When we get to storage now, and we're getting near the end, there's actually a number of issues for the design of distribution systems. Firstly, what type of distribution channel do you want? And again, distribution channel is an old phrase. Is it in-store, online, customer pickup? What about dispersal of stock within the channel? So how many stock holding points do you need? That will impact the size of them. And by the way, when I talk about stock, I talk about the actual products and items. The word inventory actually means the list. So it's a recording of the items in stock. Where are the stock holding points to be located? Close to being produced, close to market, in between. Now, this is old work from Hoover in the 1940s, but in a globalized environment, it also makes some sense. Where do you put together products, say, that are being made across Asia and then ship them to market? Should there be a consolidation center somewhere in Asia? And lastly, one of the most important ones from what we did was the idea of service for stock holding points in what we know as the hinterlands, Northern Finland, Northern Scotland. And we've done a fair bit of work on that. When you have small population bases, how do you supply them? Next slide, please. I won't go into this in detail because of time, but this is a graphic of the distribution network in the UK for Argos, which is a online, but also a catalog shop retailer. And basically, you have a number of regional distribution centers, national distribution centers. You have one for supplies that come in from the rest of the world because they source 60% of their products from Asia. And when we talk about different product types or stock keeping units, they have over 16,000. They have 450 stores and more. They have more than 2,500 suppliers. So the complexity that Mr. Burrell talked about is magnified when you get on land and start trying to figure out how to service the entire country or community. Next slide, please. And so what are some of the issues here? And I'm happy to hear Mr. Burrell talk about the customer journey, as it were. What kind of customer service is required, particularly from the customers? Now, I'll hold my hand up and say I'm an old marketer. And so my focus in logistics and transport has always been at the sharp end. Are consumers getting good value? If they don't have products on shelf to buy, is that from poor on-shelf availability and so on and so forth? Where are these customers? And when you look at putting locations in and things like this, what criteria do you use? McDonald's restaurants for decades have used a population size of 50,000 people to put a store in. I don't know if they have changed off that, but that is what they thought was economically viable. And what about committing product or stock and what form? And how do you maintain a proper inventory to track all of it? And this gets into much talked about issues of speculation versus postponement. Do we put stock in anticipation of demand, or do we wait and try and feed it into the rest? And so if we have too much stock, it's going to cost us for transport or stock holding, as we have to redistribute it, sell it at a discount if it's obsolete or out of date, and store it for longer. But if we don't have enough, we're going to have customers' dissatisfaction, which might mean loss of sale and revenue at that point, but also in future, particularly if they choose not to take our business and go elsewhere in future. Next slide, please. When we look at sustainability now related to all of this, well, how about the amount of the land that's occupied? How big is the footprint for the distribution center, warehouse, whatever? How much direct energy is used in kilowatts for square meters? What emissions are produced in CO2 per square meter, for example? How much water does the facility consume? And that would be in cubic meters per year. What types of building materials are used, and are they sustainable or not? Next slide, please. Excuse me. There's an example of the size between UK and Finland, where I have done most of my work in the last 30 years. We find that commercial property in UK consumes 50% of energy and 40% of all raw materials used within UK. Again, that is reinforced by the statistics I presented earlier, which shows that activities in the business space are worse than sort of the transport that goes with them. There's also distinctive size differences that we saw between Finland and UK. There is about 1/2 of the UK warehouse space in Finland for about 1/10 of the UK population. Next slide, please. So how do we reduce a building's environmental impact? Well, firstly, we try and design sustainability into buildings. Certainly for new buildings, that's a given. We try and improve efficiency of operations and handling equipment. We have to focus on energy for heating, cooling, and lighting, and water used to reuse, so gray water. And we have to harness green energy, solar panels, wind turbines for our own energy source, and certainly in warm climates, such as in Thailand and Asia, do we have high reflectance roofing to try and keep the heat out and keep the cooling costs low. Next slide, please. Excuse me. There are certifications for sustainable buildings. You have the LEED certification in the US and BREEAM in Britain, which takes into account some of these measures and you can be certified for the greenness of your building. And so firms are encouraged to actually look into these and follow these. Next slide, please. So some concluding thoughts. Please advance one. I just want to reiterate, sustainability is a complex, wicked problem, as people in systems thinking think. So it's not simple or easy, or we can't do it within a half an hour. And supply chain and logistical activities, particularly on land transport and warehousing, have a responsibility, but they're easy targets for others outside the industry to criticize. Okay. And again, I come back to my example that citizens driving their own cars contribute more to greenhouse gas emissions and congestion than freight trucks. So let's not allow the engine of modern economic activity, logistics, and supply chain to be unfairly stifled. Okay. But this doesn't mean the industry gets a free pass. They need to consider very carefully the real issues of climate change. And a holistic outlook and creative thinking, such as some of the things we showed for e-commerce, are needed to provide substantive, meaningful solutions to these issues. Next slide, please. So, Kokum Ka, Tak, thank you. Any questions? Okay, some questions have come up in the chat. Sirwan, you would ask this. What do you think of using electric vehicles delivering parcels in the city? The trade-off for me is there'll be less emissions from CO2 related to direct diesel emissions, which is fine. But where do you charge them, and what is the energy source that is being used to provide that electrical energy for the vehicles? What's the CO2 for that? If it's a coal-fired power station, that may not be as well done. War porn, how to balance COVID safety transport with maintaining speed of delivery. Good one. We have taken a view in some countries in Europe, particularly in Britain, that COVID's over. We no longer have to wear face masks. We no longer have to do things. I don't believe that for a moment. And the balance is going to be, you have to put in extra safety features. And I think what might have to happen is customers or consumers at the consumer level might have to appreciate it's going to take a little more time. One thing that bothers me is this idea of compressing time for some deliveries, especially home deliveries. The food stores, retail food stores, Tesco, for example, and you have Tesco Lotus in Thailand, I know, even though it's been recently sold. But these folks are now guaranteeing delivery within 2 hours if you make an online order. You're kidding. If you need food that bad that you need delivery that quickly, get up off your butt, get out of your house and go down to the store and buy it. You know, we are falling all over ourselves to provide what I think is probably too much service on that kind of thing. So there's a role for consumers to play here, not just getting out of their cars and getting them off the roads, but also getting out of the house and getting around and doing some of these things. Why do we need everything delivered? Okay. Another question from Narsarinth on the best strategy to develop the hinterland. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Because now we have a question from attendee, Kun Siriwan.
Okay.
So from now we invite Kun Siriwan into the panel, so you can ask with Professor Grant directly.
You're muted.
Kun Siriwan, you may need to turn on your microphone.
Kun Siriwan, could you please turn on your microphone? So I can't hear you.
You're still muted.
All right. I think there's some technical problem with the microphone.
Okay.
Right.
Then why don't you
So
type
I
it into
believe
the
that
chat?
right.
Yes.
I believe that Kun Siriwan has asked on the chat box already, and Professor Grant has replied. Right. Right.
Yes.
If I can, and I would like to make sure that I answer Narsrent's question about developing hinterlands. It's the final one that's here.
Okay.
In
Yes.
essence,
All
you
right.
almost need a consolidation center or someone to bring all goods in, like a UCC, to work with the hinterlands. That is something that we proposed a number of years ago, and we trialed it in northern Scotland, and it seemed to work. And interestingly, it was done by a local service provider because we had reached out to some of the large folks, and I won't say who they were, to see if they wanted to do it. And they said, no, we'll service it out of Glasgow. We'll just do all the driving. And we said, that's not what this is about. We're trying to have product available there. So I think some sort of an urban consolidation center would be one of the best ways. Okay, I have another new message.
All right,
You
so
think
we
shift-
have next questions from attendee Kun Sirin. All right, so you
Okay.
can turn on the microphone and ask with Professor Grant directly.
Good morning, Professor David. I would like to ask you the question. In your opinion, what the best strategy to develop the hinterland? Your opinion.
That's what I just covered. And that's basically using something like a consolidation center. Okay, so you'll see links within the presentation to various items. The article that we wrote on urban consolidation centers in UK with Kanyurat and Samuel actually gives some suggestions in there. But one person looks after all the distribution in and distribution out. And I think that's one of the most efficient, cost-effective ways for hinterlands. But it's not been well established.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
so
does
much.
that work?
That's work. Very good one.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
I think we have one more question, right? From Kun Warawut. Kun Warawut, are you there? No. Oh, all right. Oh, sorry. Kun Waraporn, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Right.
Can you speak up a bit, please?
Yeah. Actually, I got the point from the Tesco answer from Mr. David. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's very challenging especially for the small company. Because you have to take time before you like cleaning up the track surface before going out. So you have to for the supply chain delivery lead time, you have to take more time, but you can control and planning. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
So thank you very much, Professor David Grant, for your time. We have such, a very thoughtful, session together with all the audiences here. So thank you very much for your valuable time, I would say.
Okay,
Yes, thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณครับ Professor Grant. Hope to see you again next time. Thank you to the Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus as well.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so from
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Right. So if there's other question, you can leave in the comments in the chat box so that we can raise all the questions to Professor
David Grant
later. Right.
all right, so from now we have to move on to the next keynote speaker.
So we have another keynote speaker, and he is one of the very interesting person because he leads the EEC,
Yes.
Eastern Economic Corridor. And now we have Mr. Warawut Mala, The title is Special Advisor of Eastern Economic Corridor or EEC Office. And the topic that he is going to deliver today is about the EEC's policy, sustainability management of logistopolis, right? So this is the new terminology. All right, so Mr. Bollywood, are you ready there?
Thank you,
Sawasdee
MC.
krab, good morning. Right, so I hope
Good
you're
morning.
ready. So whenever you're ready, thank you very much.
Okay, I started now. Good morning,
Right.
honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, that my name is Warwood, and I have been working for the railway, Thai Railway, for more than 35 years. Now I am the special advisor to the EEC. So today's topic is very challenging. I think when you have heard about the logistic alone, it's in the tough time of this industry. Starting with the COVID-19, everybody has to stop or delay all the things. Secondly, it's the war between Ukraine and Russia. And then meanwhile, we have the economic situation where everybody got the inflations and, they destroy all the economies. And the world has to move. So last year, I think the logistic alone for the marine transport, they made a lot of profit, very high skyrocket profit, but not due to the whole world, but due to some industry only because of the COVID-19, the result, the aftermath of COVID-19, aftermath of world war, I mean the war between Russia and Ukraine. So anyway, today I'm going to be concentrated on the EEC area. I think most of you have heard our EEC Eastern Seaboard project 30 years back. During that time, the government announced it just in the announcement of the government to set up the committee to develop the Eastern Seaboard. 35 years ago, nothing can be prosperous as the gas that we found out in the Gulf of Siam, and with that they developed the industry starting from Chonburi and Rayong province. So this area has been made a lot of prosperity to Thailand. This time, everything changed. 35 years, everything changed. We cannot make use of the benefit from the Eastern Seaboard without changing. So 5 years ago, I think the government has initiated the idea of having the Eastern Seaboard Economic Corridor, the revitalizing of Eastern Seaboard, because this area is appropriate for, it's near to the port. And during the prosperity, 35 years, they built up the Mataput port, where we call the industrial port, and also developed Lam Chabang port instead of Bangkok port, which was very, very congested during that time. So we have the Lam Chabang phase 1 and phase 2 already. Actually, with the master plan of Lam Chabang, we have 3 phases. But due to the development of our export and import, so we developed only 2 phases at the EEC. On top of that, the government built up a lot of infrastructure for transport. Firstly, with the motorway, with the expansion of Sukhumvit Road, which was the main road from Bangkok to the Eastern Seaboard. Motorway has newly developed. And also with the railway, they developed first connected from Bang Sue to Sattahip Port, which is almost at the end of nearby Rayong province. The Sattahip Port is a Navy port anyway, but we developed that rail line from Bangkok to Sattahip. It was a single stretch to begin with. During the Lam Chabang phase 1 and phase 2, the government built up another railway line we call double tracking project from Bangkok to Lam Chabang, to Sriracha and Lam Chabang. So with the development of the double track of the railway, we can transport import and export cargoes between Bangkok and Lam Chabang. Bangkok, we set up the Lakabang Inland Container Depot to be the arm of the port in nearby Bangkok. So, but that's all the infrastructure that the government built up and invested. So with the newly development of the EEC, the location, why is there? The Eastern Seaboard still the very interesting location for doing the business. But what kind of business that we are going to improve or develop? So the secret of the success from the previous development of Eastern Seaboard is Thailand has to keep the pace with the global demand. So during that time, they were interested, the global interested in using the petrochemical product. And we developed a lot of things, automobiles, car industry. So we developed that and serve the needs of the global. That's why we can improve our economies constantly. So when we want to revitalize the well-known Eastern Seaboard, they set the same target. The key success factor is the same. Keep the pace with the global trends or demand. So what are they? What are they? You have to study carefully on that before you invested in all the infrastructure, additional industrial. We know one thing, that we cannot rely on rice. We cannot rely on the existing automobile. We cannot rely on the tourists alone, because you see COVID-19, they destroy all the tourist industry. So we have to go digitalize for sure. So when they put that together, the government at the top level, they have a brainstorming, and they kind of setting up the EEC, is the office to be the driver of this project. So when they decided what to do, they're starting with the phase 1. Phase 1 is improvement of infrastructure. This one is to make part of logistics stronger and reliable, more reliability on that. So they said that if you want, we have Don Mueang Airport, as you know that, to begin with, and we have Suvarnabhumi Airport, the airport where 1 year after you close is full already. So we have to expand. And one way to expand is to go to the other airports, which is the military airport during the Vietnam War a long time ago. We call the Utapao Airport. Actually, it's a good location. It's a good airport, but we, most of the time that we do not commercialize this airport that much. So we opened this airport in the old days for charter flight and for some flight when we opened sky for the low cost airline. So there were some airlines using that, and they built up the new terminal to be commercialized. But in order to connect 3 airports together, by the aiming of having the journey time shortest within 1 hour, when you want to commute between Bangkok, where is the capital of the country and all the industry, every center is there, to the new area, to the Eastern Seaboard area, must be within 1 hour. So the investor will have 3 choices to use Don Mueang Airport, Suvarnabhumi Airport, and Utapao Airport. to come and doing business, and then can commute back into Bangkok to have some business furthermore in the center of Bangkok within 1 hour. So when they developed, they thought about it. So they developed the high-speed train. We had the airport linking from Payathai to Suvarnabhumi Airport long time ago, about 10 years back. And this one will be used as the part of the high-speed train. So we will connect the high-speed train from Payathai to Dornmueang and connect it from Suvarnabhumi to Uttarpao Airport. I will tell you the details later on. But with the improvement of the infrastructure, the road, motorway, and also the sea by marine, they also developed the high speed, but it's not success as such. Anyway, with the plan of having the phase one infrastructure, we have 4 main projects. First one is the Mataput Airport phase 3. Mataput, I told you that is an industrial port. So they develop port for the industrial area nearby Mataput. So we want to open the third phase, whereby you can receive something to do some industrialized there. Next one is Lam Chabang port, is phase 3. So this has to be developed in order to increase the capacity of gateway. Thirdly is a high-speed train, as you know that. And the fourth one is the airport, the expansion of Uttarpao Airport to be able to handle the 60 million passengers per year, and with the modernized, commercialized airport, and can link it with the high-speed train. So when they form up the idea, they start to invest in that. And the techniques that they are using is to use the public-private partnership types of project. So they develop that by using some money from the private sector, some money from the government to invest in those infrastructure. For the past 5 years, we already signed those contracts, and some of them is going to be implemented now. The high-speed train project is one of the privileged project, because it's the first time in Thailand that they will develop the high speed. So when we build up all the network of infrastructure, we have to think about the targeted industry as well. What would be a targeted industry to link with those network? So we said that the automobiles today cannot be survived. 2030, 2035, they will be gone. The combustion engine will be gone. So we have to develop the next generation automobiles, whatever it is, EV, hybrid, whatever it is. We have to see the future and then develop the industry there. The intelligence, electronics, robotics, that kind of things, high value medical tourism. It's not just a tourism, it's a medical tourism, meaning that people are the old age industry all over the world. Some people in some countries, they dare not to go to the hospital due to the limited methods. So they prefer to fly out and then, to have a medical care here where it's cheaper and higher quality of service. If you can recall the Bamrungrad Hospital, a lot of, before COVID time, there are a lot of Middle East people coming back and forth to Bamrungrad and some other big hospital just to cure. All over the country, nearby our country, like Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and even Malaysia, they can come some other time to have a cure, to have a to have a service here. But we don't have anything like in the hands of the government to develop that. We let the private sector develop those. So the targeted industry is also including the advanced agriculture and biotechnology and the food for the future. So this is the tough question, what to be developed, along with the new area of improvement, of development. So we split off in phase 2. Next slide, please. In phase 2, it's a lot of what you call it, the investment money in the automation, robotics, health and well-being, smart logistics, 5G, and BCG, bio, circular, and green, which is very, very big trend of the global today. So if you believe me, I think that I believe Thai government, we believe that in the future, in this industry, there will be the leading industry that the global needs. That's why we have to develop things like in phasing, first with the infrastructure, second with the building up of those industries. It's not easy because it's a new one. It's a new, you need 5G, you need the digitalized, you need robotics. You don't need labor anymore. You don't need agricultural industry that growing by farmers and gardeners. No more those kind of things. And we are using fewer people to do the job. That's why we have to think about how to building up the capacity building of human resources. Scientists will be needed. Innovation things, we have to mobilize those knowledge and have a technology transfer from the leading companies in the global to develop this together. Be open for all. Next, please. So, and by using, instead of the announcement like in the ODA, it's not stable. So we have the Eastern Economic Corridor Act, where the policy committee chaired by the PM, including 14 ministers, Budget Bureau, and ESDB, and everyone, almost in the cabinet, there's a permanent administration. Whoever will become PM, they will have to do what according to this law. And the Secretary General, which is Kun Kanit Sansupan today, and the office will feed up all information to pass this permanent administration. And with the one-stop service, the urban planning and incentives, promotional zone, we have a clear working process, working together with the existing organization, existing office that can do the job, and we add on the extra needs for the investor. And the most important thing is the easy inclusivity. We have integrated plan together. In most of the project consists of so many organizations from different ministry. So EC will be the middleman with the coordinator to coordinate with those ministry organizations to work as to set the target, the final target of the benefit of the country by having this law. Next, please. As my presentation said to you that the total investment of infrastructure, we have been doing that. And the total investment is about 654 million baht, which is the 1/3 of them will be using the public investment, which I can tell you that is a high-speed train project. The infrastructure, the civil work, only the track and everything will be invested by the public. The public also invests in small money of the runways of the Utapao, new runways of Utapao. and also with the map to put nothing much, and also as well as with the Eastern Seaboard, which we have the lands and availability of lands and everything. So if we can go into the details of the first project is the high-speed rail linking 3 airports. The area is expanded, from only Chonburi and Rayong, and we include Chachoengsao as one of them. And they connected with the 5 provinces with the 3 airports, as I told you, with 9 stations. The distance is about 220 kilometers, maximum speed 250 kilometers per hour, and traveling time, as I told you, one hour. We're hoping to have operation in 2027. It's another 5 years from now. And within the city, we have to reduce the speed of high speed from Suvarnabhumi to Dongdaeung, maybe reduce to 160. So this one is the trademark of PPP project, which the government signed with the private sector. Next one is Utapao Airport. We'll be having the station under with the new terminal. We are working closely with the private sector, which is different from the private sector who runs the high-speed train. The Utapao Airport is run by another group of private sector, but we're working closely together to do things like Suvarnabhumi Airport, where they have the airport rail links under the terminal. So this one can carry the handle the passenger 60 million, and with the terminal, cargo terminal, with the MRO, which is will be the maintenance for the aeroplane, the center to maintain the things, and the free trade zone training center of the aeronautical personnel. So this one, most of the money is from the private sector, who will get the benefit of operating this, but they will pay back for the benefits, for the money back to the government. Last but not least is the Mataput Industry. No, not last. So Mataput Industry Port, Phase 3 Industrial Port. This port is the overall capacity is about 30 million tons a year. They're aiming at to handle the liquid natural gas 11 million tons a year, where they believe that the LNG will be the fuel to produce the electricity in the future. Because we liberalize, we don't leave it to one organization who generates the power anymore, electricity anymore. We will separate. Any group of the industry can do can produce their own electricity, and by using the LNG. So last but not least is the Lam Chabang Port Phase 3. So the target is to increase throughput to 18 million. Now I think airport, Lam Chabang Port handling is about 7 or 8 million before COVID's time, but maybe reduce a little bit during the COVID time. So they will increase the land capacity of land transport to 3 million cars a year, which I believe that is not the existing automobile, is the future automobile. And increase the ratio of goods shipment via trains by 30%. That means this port will be connected, rail and road connected, which will separate the model split of 30-70 rail to road, and will be the first automatic container management system in this port. So meaning that we are doing things today for the future, for the global trends in the future. There will not be a lot of bulky product, bulky materials to coming into Thailand and carrying on and go to the trade in the future. There will be products where you don't see it today. The products where you selling off the knowledge, selling off the quality, hygiene in the hospital area. They have a lot of knowledge that we need to transfer from abroad, and then we will build up the centers here. So after having heard about the total projects of the infrastructure in EEC, we also plan with the inside EEC area. We also will build up the university to produce or to train the workers in the future. We have to prepare especially for them. The graduated people today lost job a lot because they don't know what to do with the existing industry. But for the new industry, they still have a demand for that, great demand for that. Especially for robotics, especially for the new medical, hygiene, food, and everything. We will need a lot of people. We need a lot of scientists. So we have a training center. We will build up the new town, where people can stay there and go buy EV to work every day. Entertainment area is there. If you are not happy with your entertainment within the new town, you can go to Pattaya by 25 minutes. So this one will be linked together in the future, including the human beings, the workers. We have to train people to change the idea of studying education. We have to do it by doing, not learning anymore, learning and doing together. So there'll be a lot of projects, hundreds of them. I think my secretariat, Kun Kanit, knows a lot of them, and then they are trying to develop those things. I know also it's only infrastructure improvement only. It's not the whole idea. We need more experts that come and talk to us. And if you want to invest and you need some more privilege than the ordinary channel, you can come to talk to us. We still have land available. We still have partners. We still have people that want to do business with you and help you to develop things together. Again, before I ending up my presentation, I think if you keep the pace with the global trends, the project will be survived and will give it back to the country for the next 30 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะคุณวรวุฒิ So there are many developing plans to be in EEC. So from now we move on to ค่ะ All right. So from now we move to the part of Q&A sessions. Excuse me, can you hear me?
Hello, 1 2 check.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me? All right. Thank you very much.
It's okay. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากค่ะคุณวรวุฒิ So there are many developing plans in EEC.
Right. So we can hear, there are list number of projects under EECs, right?
Yes.
And they're all huge investments.
Right.
And, that's a good news for our EECs, provinces.
Yes, and that's right. So from now we move on to the part of Q&A sessions, and we have the attendees who have the questions. Mr. Supatharachai. So please invite Mr. Supatharachai for asking questions. Hello, Mr. Supatharachai.
Okay.
All right. So
okay,
I give
can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you well. Right.
Okay, thank you very much for your very good presentation. Mr. Waterwood, you state a lot of the main transportation system within the EEC areas. So could you please explain more about how to the state provided the transportation system from EEC areas to the other areas of Thailand?
Put it this way, as I told you, this is the main infrastructure that I presented to you were only the big one that we are like high speed train, like new port, new industrial port, and the new airport. But before we are linking with the other parts of Thailand, we are also planning within the Eastern Seaboard area. We dream about having the new town that link with the what you call is the EV. Only electricity can be allowed. Walking distance, bicycle with the electric motorcycle, something like that. Just to do with in the areas or linking with the other towns like Pattaya, like the port, like a new industrial area that we will develop. When we developed this, we invited all the people from the Ministry of Transport, road planning, all types of road planning, all types of marine, all types of railways that will link with to the other parts of the Thailand. Just within AEC, we developed the road connection with maybe with the high-end one. But for linking with the normal road, we will have to work together, especially for the highway department, because they will be the key person to develop the new road between the other parts of Thailand and linking to this. I can tell you right now that we are developed 2 high-speed train projects. The first one is we call that the Thailand and China high-speed train project between Bangkok and Korat and Nakhon Ratchasima, which will be extended to Nong Khai, and linking Nong Khai with Vientiane, and link with the new train from Vientiane to Kunming. So this is part of them that we are the road they can link in so many ways, but for the railway there will be a linkage in the 5 years time or in the 6 years time to do that. And with the road, main road, the extension of motorway, the new highway, even to Chanthaburi, Rayong, Chanthaburi, and Tra, they also plan with us. We talk to the highway department. So this is one of them. And the other thing is the aviation. 220 kilometers is very near for the airport. What we call, the traffic will cut across or not. So this thing we discussed that what type of planes, what type of aeroplane that we'll be using. And we have the traffic control system, which we work closely with that organization to have a full control, new equipment, prepare new equipment to make sure that there will be a safety 100% for the flying. And when you landed, you can link by land either by car or by rail easily, and then you can reach the destination in very timeless. And
so that's very clear.
And good price.
That's very clear answers. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have next questions from Zoom. I think it's from Mr. Sahis. I'm sorry if I say it's wrong. The question is, BTS and ARL are very good projects. But is there any projects for the local transport? If yes, when will be it expected? All right, that's the question.
Let's see, BTS is a mass transit, right? Within the Bangkok, they extend in almost every direction of Bangkok now. We call it a mass transit system. We also have another color lines, blue line. We also having the pink line, yellow line, and orange line, which all the mass has connected people within the metropolitan areas, Bangkok, Samut Prakan, and Pathum Thani, Minburi, something like that, together to link. I think we have 10 lines, and we are doing the master plan for another 20 years in the future. Which of the Ministry of Transport is doing that study. So since this is the main line, airport link is a mass transit. Airport link to begin with, they want to link Don Mueang Airport and with the Suvarnabhumi Airport only. But due to the necessity of having the service before we finish the extension line from Phrayathai to Don Mueang Airport, the people they commute before COVID is very, very full, very great demand for the commuter train, or you call it another mass transit. But our airport link is running at 160 kilometers per hour, while the BTS is 80 kilometers per hour, or other mass transits. Anyway, they have a connectivity. We build up the connectivity with those. And once ARL return to be part of the high-speed train, they will use the same gauge, use the same rolling stocks, because they are using the same system. We change the signaling system a bit, and then we will promote both express, high speed, only 2 stop, 3 stop, or even if you want to stop at every station, 9 station, also you can do it. So airport link will be part of them, and they will be linked with the Bang Sue Grand Station, the new station in Bang Sue, where the Thai Railway will be ending up most of the train there. And SRT also have the Red Line project, where you can use as a mass transit project anyway. So there will be a new center in Bang Sue area, and we have the land of 600 rights available for the developer to work with us, to develop those big towns. We have the 600 rights of green area there already. It is the center of Bangkok. Now we can call the center of Bangkok, and they will link with high-speed train, SRT, express train, mass transit with the blue line. So there will be a good connection there in the future. Maybe my generation or my life is not last that long to see the success of that one, but we build everything for the new generation.
Plan to make the transportation can connect that in every part of Thailand, to prepare for a hub of Asian, something like that.
I'm so excited to see, in the future we will have such a strong connection that can link throughout Thailand and also in the Asian countries as well. Right. That's so interesting, I would say.
Yes.
Right.
All right. So there is no more questions. So I think we can move to the next part.
Right.
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณค่ะ คุณวรวุฒิ
Thank you very much, คุณวรวุฒิ for your time. It's such informative session together. Right. So
if you need more information, please contact our people here, and then if you want to distribute the information of those things, you can do it.
Of course, and also all the attendees, if you have any questions about the EEC, you can send directly to us, and then we can raise all the questions to the EEC office for you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you everyone for your participation and support in today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have found this conference is informative and useful. And on behalf of Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus member, I hope you all have a wonderful time today.
Right, and under today's themes, I hope everyone understand truly about how logistics is significant to us, as the location in the EEC and also in Thailand that create the great impact to the Asian country and also in the world, right? So I hope that you will keep doing everything to be sustainable, to lead the logistics become one of the blooming industry, Right. So I hope this useful second international conference hosted by Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus will provide you all the integrated solution for supply chain and also the sustainability issues.
But before moving to the next part, we would like to take a picture with all of you again.
Right. The thing that we left at the beginning. So now I think
Yes.
it's a proper time for us. Could you please turn on your camera, please, so we can have the photo session together to record the memorable events.
All
Right.
right. Okay,
Right.
so please turn on your camera and prepare yourself ready for taking pictures.
Put makeup on.
All right. Put some lipstick. All right. And smile.
Okay. So for those who still turning off the camera, please also turn on with the background, the virtual background that we have sent to you.
All right. All right. So
Right.
we have some more time for everyone to turn on your cameras.
Right. We still have time.
All right.
So-
So we give some more minutes for
Right.
everyone to turn on the camera.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much. So please, if you are ready, so please turn on the camera.
Right. So here in the room, we have the students, also the practitioners, and also all the private sectors here in this room, so that we can, have the session together to keep this recorded.
All right.
Right. So for those who just turn on your camera, please also change the virtual background so we can, have the same background.
All right. So we give you some more times, and if you are ready, please turn on the camera. All right, and smile. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much for your cooperation for like a researcher, the business corporations,
Right.
and also students who attend the conference.
All right.
All right. So now we have some more like person to turn on the camera. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your valuable time joining us today.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. But before we finish the conference, we would be appreciate if you can do the conference assessment via the QR code for us. All right. The QR code is coming out
Right.
now.
So you can scan using your mobile phone, and there will be a pop-up of the assessment form.
Yes.
Right.
And everyone who do the conference assessment, you will get the certificate after that directly to your email. So please check your email carefully before you submit the assessment form.
Right, because we have the certificate for everyone who joining today's event.
Yes.
Right.
And it's like great time for us with everyone in the conference today.
Right.
All right, so we give you some more time for scan the QR code and doing the conference assessments.
Right. Don't forget to put all the information requested. And once complete, you can download, right?
Yes, it will send to all of
it
you
will send to the email.
automatically
All right.
via your email. So if you fill in every form, and you will get it directly to your email. Yes.
Right.
And thank you once again for making this event a memorable one.
Right. We are so glad to having you all today. Well, this is not the last event that we're going to meet everyone here.
No.
Right. We're going to have actually the third international conference hosted by Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus again. But under which theme you need to keep connected? How to keep connected, Ajahn Ping?
Or we have many channels
Right.
for connect with each other. For
Right.
example, Facebook.
Yeah, right. We have Facebook page on Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus. So please do not forget to click follow carefully. All right.
And we also have YouTube channel.
Right, under the channel of KUSRC
conference for today conference via YouTube as well, so you can go back and watch it again.
Right.
Or if you are ready or you have done the conference assessment, can you please type in number 1 in the chat box?
Maybe put number 1.
Yes.
All right, so that we can know that you have completed the form.
All right, so you will show the QR code around here for you guys, and give you some more time because it's a free conference with a certificate.
Right.
All right. So once again, we have a channel for everyone to connect with us.
Right. One of those is Facebook. So for those who haven't followed, please go to the Facebook page, Kasetsart University Sriracha Campus, and then click follow to keep information updated. We will publish all the information there so that you can follow and see what's going on. Right, and also we have the YouTube channel.
Yes,
and
KUSRC.
Right, KUSRC.
So you can type KUSRC in YouTube, so you can meet that again.
And we have very informative video uploaded there as well that related to our campus.
So don't forget to click like and subscribe our channel.
Don't forget again, next time we're gonna have the 3rd International Conference. So please stay in touch, and then we can get back and see each other again.
And thank you everyone for your cooperation.
Right, don't forget, all right? Don't forget to complete the assessment form. Okay.
Okay, so now is the time, ka.
Right, so time's up. It's a pity, right? Today was very, very informative and, useful session sharing.
All right, so we have to say thank you very much, everyone, and we have to say goodbye.
Right. Thank you very much for all your participation. And surely we will see each other again next time. But for today, we both have to say สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
See you next time. ขอบคุณครับ
See you soon.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Have a good afternoon.